it's going to kick me out. Hang on.
So it's mine, when I click on it, it brings me to a place that says either enter public site or authenticate.
Okay, that's where you want to be.
Okay.
And I'll share again here.
And everybody's geared for the most exciting hour of their lives, right? Good, good.
So you're keeping it to an hour?
Well, we're sure either that or we could spend 16 straight hours and not even have scratch the surface. So it's your call, Andy.
You just let us know what we have to know.
Yeah, right. So are you ready, Barb?
Can you see that?
Yep.
Is that what
We don't,
There we
you
go.
don't think Greg's coming?
I have not heard either way.
Okay.
Okay, so on this screen that it takes you to, you're going to want to do the authenticate,
Okay.
and then it'll take you to that other screen that I was on.
Okay.
And that's where in that email, the first part, the H, the one that starts with H, that's your username. And the other one is the password for the board. And all of you guys have the same username and password.
Okay.
And when you sign in, you're view only. So you don't have to worry about whether or not, you're making any changes accidentally or anything like that. You won't be able to
Oh,
do,
good.
but you'll be
Okay.
able to see and view everything.
So once we're in, then we just click on the little arrow next to policy. And the ones that you guys will look at will be draft for right now. And then on this drop down over here, where it says book, so the one that says Neola ready for processing, those are the ones that you can see our edits on that Neola had to, that we were completely finished with. Neola had to go in and approve our changes. The next drop down is the one that we'll be using, the Neola policy templates. That's like our work in progress right now. So if we go in, you can see all of our edits. If we click on one, you can see what we've taken out, what's in there. Anything that's in green in these edits, like the beginning of this one, were from our old set of policies. And if we scroll down, oh, that one's not a good example. Let's see. This one. And anything in black is what has been pulled in from Neola. And on the drop down, the last one is just the finished, what they have ready for us as soon as you guys approve them to get out on our page for the public. They're all clean, all the edits are gone. You can't see anything on, it's just the final product on those. So like I said, what you guys will be looking at will be the templates for processing. And then it's just a matter of click on each section and each policy is in there with our edits.
Have you been able to get in, Katrina? Sorry about that.
I'm trying.
Okay. And not that you have to be in there yourself tonight, but we just want to make sure that you can get in there.
Understood.
Right.
I hit the button right now, so hopefully I'll be able to tell you. That didn't work out, so I'll try again. Every time I hit in the credentials, it just goes right back to like login. It doesn't tell me that anything is wrong. It just asks me to log back in again.
How about, did you hit the authenticate button?
Yep. I hit that and then I got to the login information, username and password.
Okay.
And when I put it in.
I was able to get in fine. I got in on my phone.
Okay. I'll make sure I'm doing it right. HSD. Okay.
And it is case sensitive on the username and password.
I think I was forgetting to put the S on. I apologize.
No problem.
Come on. And of course, it seems like the internet is so slow.
You're fine.
I was worried the storm was going to cause us problems.
Well,
No kidding.
I'm still not confident that I won't get kicked out yet. So just we'll see how it goes.
Okay. It's taking a lot longer. I must be getting somewhere. So
Okay. All
that's
right.
a positive. I'm not in, but it's
Okay.
taking longer.
Well, let's wait and we'll just make sure you are before we leave. But Barb, do you want to go back to just the full table of contents on the left-hand bar for me? So when Neola, their numbering system is a little bit different than what our old WASB numbering system was. If you remember, we had in the hundreds, 200s, 300s, 400s, and so forth. So there's a little bit different, but there's a lot of similarity. So the zeros are sort of some bylaw templates, some definitions, some, legal kind of declarations and so forth. But then you have the administration, the program, and then you can see there's professionals. So there's the 3,000 set is all for professionals. The administrators are, professionals, teachers. The 4,000 is support staff, 5,000 is students. So a lot of those policies will be very similar, but they will be written for those classifications of people. So for example, our non-discrimination policy, you're going to see a lot of the same language. The compliance officers will be the same. The reporting processes will be the same. But obviously, some of the language in the policy itself will be different for a teacher or a student. So in our old policies, we tried to lump them all together as one. And this makes it a lot easier to see what the processes are for those in particular. And a lot of the employee issues, they might be very similar between the teaching staff and the support staff, but there are obviously some areas that are quite different. So having those separate policies, is helpful. We have a separate one for finances, as we normally do. Then you have, property, which would be sort of the facility use kinds of things. Operations will be a lot of the technology, acceptable use and social media, all of those sorts of things. And then the relationships, that's sort of connections to communities, connections to institutes of higher ed, police departments, and those sorts of things. So it's fairly common, a lot of the same things that we have. It's just that we're discovering, so they clearly cover everything that we've covered in our old policy, but it's just in different fashions. And I think you'll discover that there's a lot more to each of the policies than we would have had in ours. So the piece of going through them policy by policy, at least in this first wave, it would be, I think, prohibitively time consuming. So we'll take a look at a couple of them, and I think you'll get a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. But our process has been, we've been meeting with the Neola representative, the sort of the trainer, and he's working us through those. So we have two, the zeros and the 1000s that have already been all the way through the process, and Neola's ready for you to adopt them directly. He's worked through that with us, the 2000s, the 3000s, and most of the 5000s and 4000s. So I think by the end of this week, he'll be able to finish those edits and turn those over. So I'm hoping that in real short order, you'll have a ready to adopt version of through the 5000s. And then our goal is still to try to wrap up the 6, 7, 8, 9, because those are a little bit smaller, sections, still before June 30th. But as a committee, you're just not going to have the chance to go through all of them and look and approve policy by policy. So I have a couple thoughts for you. One is if we can get them in place where Neola says, yep, those are all legal, what you want to do, that you could adopt them so that we're not living in two policy worlds, the old one and this one, and just adopt them and then start as a committee going through them section by section and spending a little more time with them, knowing that there's also a new Title IX policy. I don't know if in your workplaces that you've had too many conversations about the changes in the Title IX laws, but there's a 2,000-page regulation that's come out and that we have to, as a school district, and it's, well, for everybody, everybody has to adopt it and be in compliance by August 14th. So Neola is going through that 2,000 pages and the world is recommending that as a board, you're going to have to adopt a Title IX policy that I think will be fairly extensive, but it's also going to cause edits to a whole slew of other policies. So, and that's going to be ready for you hopefully in July, so you can adopt it in August so that you're compliant with everything by August 14th. So you're going to have another reason to be taking a look at a lot of these policies anyway. So if you're comfortable that Linda and Barb and Josh and I have walked through all of them with the Neola advisor, if you're comfortable enough to adopt them and then begin your walk through, that would allow you to be living in the new policies, which I think are a better match for you with all of the legal changes that are coming. But that would be your recommendation to the board. You can certainly wait to adopt all of them until you've had a chance to look at all of them. But I think when you have a chance to get in there and see them, you're going to realize just how much time it would take to go through. How many hours have we invested in these? Are just for the four of us going through. So it could take easily, a lot of meetings for your entire next year to try to get through that, and maybe even not then. So just that caution. Barb, do you want to go back to, let's just take a look at the bylaws template. And are you on the first one, the definitions, or where are we at? Here we go. I keep wanting to move my mouse, Barb. Can you pop in my head and we'll mind meld on that sort of stuff. So this is something that we wouldn't have normally had in our policies, but I think it's helpful and to have sort of definitions that are common going through. So that would certainly be something that's there. How long is that one for? Just scroll down through that whole piece. And I think this was one that we did have a question, and there aren't too many that we have board questions on. Barb, what is, that's the one in the remote meetings that we said that it's fine for people to attend remotely, except for closed sessions, that we wouldn't hold closed sessions remotely. And that's sort of what our policy is now. And the difficulty with having a remote meeting is that you have a closed session for reasons, because you're talking about confidential personnel issues, confidential negotiations, confidential health issues, maybe with kids. And it's really hard, like right in my room right now, my husband might walk through and he could possibly, or he's sitting out in another room, for all of us to be able to maintain confidentiality when we're Zooming in from our homes is really difficult. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do a closed session from home, but I think until we get a better sense of how we can keep that confidential, we're recommending that you not do that. So that's the kind of question that you might run into when we take a look at some of these details. But Barb, can you just scroll down and take a look at the number of policies that are in that that section? It deals with the boundaries for the school district, board powers, the electoral qualifications of board members, recall, compensation. So this is a lot of the things that are included in what's a quorum, special meetings, consent agenda items, use of email, what's a public record, the, officers' roles. So you can see it covers all of those same kinds of things that are covered in our policy traditionally, just a different number, and a lot of extra reading. With that, Barb, I'm gonna have you jump down. Would you go to the 5,000, the student template that we worked on today? I just want to give another example. Let's just, under the student template, if you could go to, we were about midway through on that one. I'm looking for the bullying and the harassment, that whole piece, that series. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, start with the hazing one. And I just want to let you see sort of a sense of, as the policies, just how detailed they can be. This one, and Barb, just stop on all the legal references for starters. You can see that they update this for us, so we know exactly which statute. So if somebody ever, starts questioning, why are you doing, we know exactly where the law, it sets those expectations for us. So if you want to go on down through, Barb. And this is a policy we wouldn't have had before, but it does do you can see the student, the hazing, and the bottom part, we're eliminating everything that says the district will create. Well, this one is, I guess, that's not going to be in the handbooks, because the next policy is going to be in the handbooks. But throughout all of them, we've also eliminated any administrative guidelines. We're not doing those because we normally don't need them. But if you say you've got them, and then people will ask you for them if you have them. And so we're not going to do that part of it. but this is just student hazing, which is one type of harassment. Then go to the student harassment policy, Barb, the anti-harassment policy. And in this one, again, you get the legal references, but you get, it goes through the policies, it goes through definitions, it goes through the difference between harassment, sexual harassment, gives all sorts of examples of what that would be. Then it goes further into, again, the differences on ethnic kinds of harassment that may happen. Then you finally get into the reporting procedures and the complaint procedures and how someone might process that complaint. And then the compliance officers for all of these would be Mr. Terrell as the principal and Lindsay Jackson as the school psychologist, so that we have both genders covered if someone wants to register a complaint. And then for all of them, we're also publishing them in the handbooks and on the website. So that's for all the harassment policies for staff and for students. And then it goes through the whole investigation process, the complaint procedures, and confidentiality, sanctions and monitoring, what happens in the case of a reprisal, what kind of training are we going to be doing, how we handle the records. So, I mean, that's one policy. Now, granted, it's going to be very similar in other sections, but then Barb, go quickly to the bullying policy. There again, then you have the definitions of what bullying is. And we saw some duplication on that definition, so we took part of that out. But harassment, complaint procedures, so you can see a lot of it ends up being similar, but bullying is not the same as harassment always. So I just pulled those three out to show how much more involved Neola policies are on the whole issue of harassment and so forth than our one policy that we would have had in the old handbook. So when I say it will take a little bit of time for you to sort of acclimate yourself to all of this, you know, there's just a lot. And that's just in, like I said, that's just in one section of the policy. So, but we are going through it, Linda and Barb and Josh and I with Neola, starting with their template. And then we've gone through our policies. And so we're putting in our policies where it makes sense. And I think like when it came to the student sections, we had a fair amount of stuff around the students that we've adopted that was just ours, that we kept because our policy and Neola's were saying about the same, but we kind of liked our wording first. So like I say, we just tonight, our goal was two things. One is to get you in there, to get you acclimated so that now on all of the extra time that you have, you can log in and sort of click in and sort of take a look and sort of see, because these, as long as you stay in that policy templates for, what is that, Barb? Neola policy templates for review, is it? For processing, okay. Then you can see what we've done, the edits that we've made. And I think the templates for review those will be available for us over time, right, Barb? That we'll be able, you guys will be able to come back and take a look at those and see what changes that we've made over time. So if you're wondering why we made some of those decisions, we could always have that conversation. But we wanted you to have access to get a little bit of a feel for how to move around in there, and then just get your advice about where do you want to go. I think on many of the policies, they're far better that the Neola policies are. They're more complete. But, you know, are you ready to adopt them or recommend that the board adopts them so we're living in the Neola world rather than our old world? Or do you want to work through them? Do you think it's important for the board to work through them section by section before the board adopts the Neola policies. And that would mean then you're living with our old policy manual until you get through that and get them adopted. So that's.
Do you feel, Nancy, like everything that we had is covered? I mean, I'm hearing you say it's all covered and there's more and it's better.
Yes, that's the case, down to and including the one policy that Neola won't endorse, but they recognize it's important to our district on the prohibition of Sunday practices or the family Wednesday night family time kind of are linked to. They don't normally endorse those because they have sort of a religious kind of preference for them, but the community still seems to really want us to avoid scheduling too many things on Wednesday night. We don't call it church night. We don't call it for, a break for religion classes, but we do call it family night. But everybody knows that it's as much because our families want their children to have one night where they can get religious education. But so Neola doesn't write a policy like that because they can't stand by it. They can't defend it in a court of law for all of the school districts that they represent. But that will be a policy that will carry over from our manual, because we've had conversations on that so many times that until the board decides they're willing to back off on that or change that, we'll keep that policy. They'll just call it Highland policy.
And that's the only one?
That's really the only one that they aren't willing to endorse.
Okay.
The others are, and that's why Steve is working through it with us, and he makes recommendations if there's something that a lot of it is sort of dictated by law, or it might be something that he said, if you already have this covered in your handbook, then you wouldn't need to have it here. So we've made some of those decisions. Or if it's duplicative, if we feel that it's just too much wordage, and we've done that on several of them, that we've pared back a little bit. If we know, for example, one was done on licensing, getting an alternative license. Well, they had a whole page of definitions, and I said, that's in DPI, it's in the law, it's in the DPI manual. When people click into the licensing application, all of that's listed. We really don't need to have that in policy. So when we could, we did try to shorten things up because there is so much verbiage. But on these policies, like the harassment policies, where if you have a complaint that would ever get filed, goes to EEOC, civil rights, whomever, the first thing they ask for is show us your policies, and they want to know whether your policies have included everything that they expect. And I'd rather defer that to people like Neola. That's their job, to know what EEOC expects to see in policy. So on the really legal ones, you're better off to have those adopted. But for the others, we have been cross-checking with our old policies. It might, one policy that we have might be picked up in 2 or 3 other policies because they've numbered things differently. It might not be in the same section. But yeah, I'm confident that anything that you'd had before would be included in that. And if there's the other thing that I think, and that will come in, I think in the 9,000s, our volunteer coaching, our volunteer policies. We have our application forms with that, and we'll want to include those things which Neola wouldn't necessarily have. But I think we'd want to include that as well, so that we're sure that we've sort of built some continuity around those things for the volunteer application. So there are a few things that are purely Highland, or if the language is similar and we just feel more comfortable with it, we've kept that. But yeah, so long answer, Andy. Yeah, our policy is in there. This is more, and I think from the really tough legal issues, this is clearly better, because it's.
I don't see why we wouldn't just adopt it. I mean, we all agreed that this is the route we want to go. And if you guys went through it all and said that everything we had is in there with additions that we needed, I think that I would say we ask the board to adopt it. and then go through it.
Okay, just, yeah, and I think then that because you're, like I say, you're gonna have to revisit some of it anyway,
Mhm.
when the Title IX pieces come in, and so then you'd have a chance to start and working with Bryce to work through, okay, how do we want to, sort of go through this part? So, like I say, my goal would be to be awfully close by the 24th to have that process done. And we can keep working through this. So at least it's in Steve's and Neola's hands by the 30th. And then they could, you could, take a look at first reading on in July and start making your plans for how you want to start reviewing and walking through it as you go forward. So. I'm sorry, Andy.
Breaking up.
Go ahead, Andy.
So we will, it's saying my internet's unstable. Will we be doing that tomorrow night then? Vote.
Tomorrow night, then I had put it on the agenda so that if you wanted to start, you could, but
Okay.
I think their recommendation is because the policies cross over to so many categories that you're better off waiting until you can adopt the entire packet. So we're living with the old until that point in time. So I would wait until the 24th and see if if we're ready, then we could do it on the 24th.
Okay. I missed half of that, but I heard you say we'll wait until the 24th.
Okay, yeah. But in the report, you might want to just, let the board know that you're okay with adopting, the policies, and then you'll start, sort of acclimating to them yourself to them as you go forward.
Okay.
And you're free to start looking and reading at any time. You can sort of dip in, but we don't have too many edits. We're in the 5,000s right now. And then Linda and I will work on the finance 6,000s because she's looked at all of those already. The one that may be a little bit of interest to you as we get going is going to be, there'll be some decisions about the technology parts that we can defer because we can approve their templates now. But if you look at the very bottom of this gray column on the left-hand side, they have a special update there on social media from November of 2019, because there's so much stuff there. So that's really a toolkit that contains a lot of information that as a committee, you might want to take a look at and just say, okay, let's take a look at the whole issue of social media and what are we going to do and what don't we want to do on some of that. So that part would be of interest. And then of course, they've been trying to keep up with the COVID-19 changes. We've already adopted the one policy that the federal government required us to have as a policy in terms of how we pay our staff. So there may be some more of those that come over time too. But like I say, I can't imagine for a small school like Highland trying to sit down with a 2,000-page Title IX new law and figuring out the impact of that for policy without having some significant support. And we would have been paying for a legal person to give us that information were we not paying Neola to do it. So in the long run, it's going to turn out, I think, really well for you. So Barb, Josh, anything you want to add in terms, you've been at the table for all of this too. Anything you're thinking?
No, I think you hit it all, at least on my end. I think we're good.
Katrina, were you able to get in then?
Yes.
So it's fairly easy to navigate once you get in there. But I think what will be really nice then too is that once we do have it adopted, that you'll be able to have it out on the website. So anybody from the public can also go in. And that's the downside of hanging on to our old one. We'd either wouldn't have that access for the public, or we'd have to spend time trying to make it available to the public, knowing that it's all going to be different anyway. So when we go public, it would be nice to have it be probably the new version. So.
Sounds good. This had to be a lot of work for you guys going through all this.
It's been interesting.
I can't imagine trying to go and look at, ours and then piece it together with the new ones. And
well, the first one, the bylaws one, really drove me nuts because that hit so many different areas. And so I had some 200s, 300s for, back and forth. Then once we got into the others, because there was a better match between, teachers and kids and finances, they were clustered. But by the time I got through that first one, I thought, oh, this is going to take us 5 years to get it. But in the end, it worked out. It worked out pretty well. And Neola's been very good too, because we sent him a copy of our regular policy book that we have now. And so he's been going through too and finding things.
That's nice.
Because he knows his policy really well. So as he was reading ours, when he found things that he knew would be a little bit different, he sort of cut and pasted and put them in with the Neola policy so we could make a decision side by side.
Cool.
So they've been very helpful with that part of it too. So that's been good. We've not been alone in the process. So. Well, that's only 40 minutes, Andy.
Wow, that was fast. Good job.
We'd be happy to take you through any of the others, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a sample of what some of them look like. But like I say, they are far more detailed than what we're used to. But it doesn't leave a lot to anybody's guessing then about what the policy means. So that's helpful.
Okay. I don't think you need to go through them right now.
Okay. And like you say, you guys have access to it now, so you can get in and sort of take a look if you have a few minutes and you spot some things that you have questions about. And, there may be a couple that will come back to you with questions on as we wrap things up. But I think for the most part, we're pretty good to go.
Hey, Barb. So I think what I did wrong the first time is I didn't click authenticate. I don't know if we could just reply to all the other guys that you have to click authenticate, and then so that if they wanted to get on it sooner than later, they could too.
When we got started, I thought that same thing. I'll go back and send that same information, but put the authenticate in where it belongs. So to go to that part to get you to the next tab.
Yeah, I clicked the other one.
Well, that's all I have for you tonight. If you guys are okay with that, then
Yep.
There's still a lot going forward, but it's a nice improvement when we'll have it ready for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
So I guess we bring the meeting to a close then.
That sounds good.
Josh just saying goodbye with his mute on. Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow night.
You bet. We made it through with the weather. That's good. Bye-bye.
Henderson, I'll let Brad know that it's over so he can stop recording.
That sounds perfect. And I'll see you tomorrow morning,
We got
8:30.
Iowa County at 8:30, right?
Yep, that's our Iowa County. They sent us a couple emails, so I don't know if you saw it or not.
All right,
Okay, see you in the morning.
in the morning.